As you may remember, several lessons back we were writing test for the empty state screen that appears on the activities page the moment we remove all activities. And the same screen we were also seeing on the progress page. So now I'm going to duplicate the test for activities empty state screen and create the test for the progress empty state screen. So the test structure will be pretty much the same, we just have to change a couple of values, such as the text that is displayed on the empty screen. In this case, we're seeing that the text should be "You don't have any direct activities." So let's specify this text, also change description of this test, and import the component that we need. In this case, the component is the progress empty state. Next, let's tweak values that we are checking in the second expectation right here, where we are checking that the proper image is present, as well as proper alt text on this image. If we will inspect this image in the browser, we're seeing which text has to be shown as an alternate text and which image URL should be used. So I'm gonna switch back to the editor and specify proper values for alternate text as well as for the source of an image. And after this test will be passing. By the way, we're also having another attribute on this img element, which is class attribute, so we can also check this class. Let's add another property in this object called class with the value of age 48, like so. And since in here we're checking the whole attributes object, we can also use toEqual_matcher, which is going to do object comparison. But if I'm going to remove one of these properties from this object, in this case, this matcher will throw an error because the object does not contain all the required properties. So I actually prefer to check only two attributes, source and alt. So I'm going to use toMatchObjectMatcher. And that's about it for this test. Let's move on. Next, we're going to write test for the component which is located on the timeline page, which is this red horizontal line. And the component responsible for rendering this line is called the timeline indicator. This line goes slowly to the bottom as the time progresses, and it moves every second. As always, let's start with creating a new test file with the name the timeline indicator. Right here I'm going to leave only one testing scenario for now and render the component in the first place, which is called the timeline indicator. And we are going to check that this timeline indicator has top offset that reflects current time of the day. Let's take a look at the implementation of this component. It consists of only one tag, HR, and right here we're seeing that it also has this top offset property used for the style attribute, which is used to tell how much that horizontal line has to be shifted down from the top. This is actually a computed property which is calculated based on the following formula, and in this formula we are also using height of the window, which is calculated by this function getTimelineHeight. Right here we're getting the DOM element, which will have the same height as the whole window, and by using this value we are calculating how much the timeline indicator has to be shifted down depending on the current time of the day. So what I'm gonna do first is create window height constant in our test with absolutely random value for the height. In this case it doesn't matter. But what does matter is the way how we're going to calculate the offset that we expect to see. So let's copy over this whole formula, paste it in here, but instead of fetching the height of a real DOM element, we're going to use our random height. Let's import all necessary things and continue. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to mock getBoundingClientRect method, which is available in the prototype chain of DOM elements. So here we're going to assign mock function, because during our test execution we need to somehow force that this method getBoundingClientRect will return the height that we have initially predefined. And since we are only interested in the return value of this method, because we're only reading the height property, I'm going to define the function where I'm only going to specify the return value for the getBoundingClientRect mocked function. And in Vitest we're mocking function by calling method fn on vi object, like so. Right here I'm going to specify the full structure of an object that original getBoundingClientRect method returns. Otherwise we're going to get TypeScript errors if one of those properties will be missing. But what's most important in here is that it gives us an opportunity to customize any of these values. And that is exactly what we need, because we are interested in modifying value for the height property, which is used in the component. So we're going to assign our dummy height that we have declared previously inside window height constant. And as you can see, if I'm going to comment out any of these properties, right away we're gonna get TypeScript error, so it's necessary to have all these properties in this object. And after defining such mock, we have forced this expression to return predefined height during our test execution, so we are ready to move on to defining expectation in a test. Actually, first of all, we have to mount the component. I'm going to do so shallowly. And after that, let's write the following expectation. I'm basically going to check that the offset of the DOM element that represents our timeline indicator will be expected. In this case, we're interested in top offset. In the component implementation, we're saying that this top offset is determined by the following computed property called top offset. And in our test, we have actually used the same formula to calculate the offset, with the difference that in the test, height of the window will be predefined. And that is exactly what I'm checking by using this expectation. And just to restore all mocks, as we usually do at the end, I'm gonna write an instruction to restore mocks by using restore all mocks method. Like this. And before checking this test result in the terminal, let's print out the value of the top offset in the console. And surprisingly, we're seeing 0, that means there is no offset. And this is actually due to the fact that Vue updates DOM asynchronously and Vitest runs tests synchronously, so Vitest finishes test execution before Vue gets a chance to update the DOM based on the changed computed property top offset. So in our test, we just have to wait until Vue updates the DOM and only run our expectation. There are a couple of ways of doing it. For example, we can use function next tick that we can import from the Vue library. This is an asynchronous function. We have to use a wait keyword in front of that to wait until Vue finishes updating the DOM. And of course, since our test function is now asynchronous, we have to use a async keyword in front of this function right here. So after checking the test execution again, sure enough, now we're going to get expected top offset. And the test is passing. Another way how we can wait until Vue finishes DOM updates is to use flash promises function. This function has to be imported from the Vitest Utils library, and the import of the next tick function can be removed. And the test is still passing. Now let's go back to the editor and remove this console log statement. After this, let's also try to modify the timeline indicator component to make the test fail, to make sure that we are testing proper logic. For example, I'm going to remove this style attribute so that this indicator will not have any top offset. And there we go. In this case, the test is failing, just like we expect. Or for example, we can tweak the formula which is used to calculate the top offset. In this case, test is also going to fail. And that is it for this test. At the end, I'm going to separate 3 stages of this test: preparation, action, and expectations. And let's also run all tests in the project, as we're usually doing at the end. All of them are passing. Let's continue writing test in the next lesson.